to register a company, it's essentially registering on Companies House, and in terms of tax implications and liability things. So if I register a limited liability company, that just means that I now am less responsible for losses or whatever. And then in order to affiliate with different groups like my local church or whatever, I can just do that via Facebook groups and mailing lists and in-person interactions.
So you want to know what's different.
But yeah, like what does this digital element add?
That question reminds me of like when I was at medical school and I was showing people the internet.
Okay.
So I was showing people multimedia. You could click on this word and you can see an image or a heart sound, and it can come from anywhere in the world. And the doctors and even other students would come along and they'd sort of be really fascinated by the screen, but they say, well, I can do that in any case. I just go to the bookshelf and I get up the book. What's the big deal? And in exactly the same way, the only thing the internet did was reduce the time and cost to getting that sound or that image. I mean, you could always go to it, right? So it reduces the transactional cost of getting the information to near zero. I say it basically revolutionized gossip. The gossip is the moving of information from one place to another, whether it's a picture of a cat or a scientific paper, and that had a huge effect, right? These smart contracts based on provable, legally binding signatures, right, revolutionize power. They revolutionize, and it'll have exactly the same effect. You'll get all sorts of new forms of power. You'll get, for instance, you could create global associations and global structures and cooperate with people, and not just with the simple voting structures that you have now in the 304.
I guess I'm trying to tease apart to what the core bit is. And do you think it is that
for
word
instance,
that you use, the legally binding bit?
How would you put liquid democracy into a conventional legal structure? It's not easy to do. How would you form a multinational cooperative of cooperatives? Right. How would you, in environmental sectors, make international partnerships that embedded only green supply chains?
Right.
These things are incredibly expensive and difficult to do. But if the code was there, you could just drag and drop and put that up in 3 minutes. Okay,
the green supply chains one is interesting then, because at the moment it's very difficult to verify whether a supplier. So if every single supplier had some kind of a public address, and then it was also possible for them to get external validation that they themselves were green or whatever, and they also had a link to every single place that they sourced information or sourced materials from, then you could kind of just go down the chain and find any gaps.
So that's I moved off liquid democracy in about 2003, 4, something like that, because it was just individuals clicking on things, and then you could get this nice visual feedback and see what the vote was. But I started to realize that that's only a tiny part of what it means to be human and political. Right. A lot of it is about conversation in groups. So I wanted to know how to create groups. So I started to play with fluid groups, how you'd create these fluid groups, and what did that mean in terms of a party or a fluid group. And out of that, I started to work with law. So I created this thing called liquid law, which is a domain-specific legal language to define the terms of reference of that group. Out of that comes this, so you start getting a richer sort of, you've got basically a legal language, an open source legal language that people use. You've got richer forms of voting, and you've got richer forms of currency, and all of that stuff now can be robustly cryptographically done in a number of ways, but one of the most significant ones we know about at the moment is the blockchain. Right. So that, for me, as soon as that came out, as soon as Ethereum came out, I was right in there saying, this is the language I've been wanting for the last 15 years. Yeah, it's just so difficult because whenever we think of legally binding or binding in any way, it's very difficult for us to get beyond the court system and police and enforcement and this kind of thing. So the concept of something being cryptographically binding, or that's a misunderstanding though. It's like, I mean, It's not. It's obviously a fascinating part that something can be completely autonomous. That you can program smart contracts that move money this way or move decision making that way, based on other smart contracts purely in a virtual world without any human intervention. And it's kind of really, it freaks people out and fascinates people and is really important in a lot of domains. But that whole story completely confuses people, because that's nothing to do with what this stuff will do. This stuff instead will make it easy for human beings to create better forms of arbitration, new forms of jury, new forms of business relationships or educational relationships, and so human beings are in an arbitration process. You get a panel of people, but how you select that panel, where they come from, all this does is reduce the admin to near zero and add provability to what happened when at what time, without it doesn't remove human beings from making the decisions, because people vote. And you can use Ethereum to take those voting inputs and make decisions, right? Or other blockchain or indeed non-blockchain systems. And there's quite a number of interesting ones of those based on PKI. So public key cryptography. So the important thing to concentrate on is not the automatic virtual domain of autonomous organizations. That's really fun and really fascinating. The most important thing is we have the ability to claim back law and make it our own, and to sculpt far deeper and richer forms of human association out of it. And arbitration is a great example. At the moment, you have a dispute or you fall out with someone. What can you do? Well, it's really expensive, really time consuming. You have a family dispute or a problem.
Right.
There's no reason why people online couldn't volunteer time and services, and them people take online courses, and depending on various reputations within that context, you can quickly assemble groups of people who are good facilitators, knowledgeable about accounting or whatever the particular issue is, and you could be paying for that service with some currency that you earn by helping the local community. You could do all this sort of stuff, and previously you just could make a website. But now you can create that social organization. And there are literally millions of them that have never been created in human history before, that you'll have a language you can use to create these things with. And then if it works, and you create it here, someone in Japan can fork it. Right. And they get it up there at zero cost.
Yeah, I guess, I definitely feel like this is a whole arena which I don't understand properly yet. I'm still at the stage where I'm getting to properly being able to understand it. But my first question is, a lot of this stuff seems to, so in order for there to be human involvement, there needs to be human involvement, as like to say it in a weird way, but so